All right, guys, so I'm here with Cameron Norfleet, and in today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about big mistakes that we see first-time investors and first-time homebuyers making, how you can avoid them in order to have the most fluid and really the smoothest real estate transaction possible. So I think the number one thing that we were talking about before broadcasting here was the fact that being prepared and having preparation when it comes to a real estate transaction is, we both agreed, the number one mistake that we see people make. And the number one thing to avoid is getting into a real estate transaction or attempting to get into a deal and not being prepared. So can you talk a little about the big issue that you see when people come to you and they're just ready to buy a house right away and they want to get started immediately, but they don't have that preparation? What ends up happening? What are those pitfalls?
Well, what ends up happening in the long run, a lot of times people are just disappointed, because they're not prepared to purchase a property. So the very first step that you want to do is to get pre-approved for a loan. Okay, and that's where you would come in, obviously. A lot of people they'll contact me, and say, hey, Cameron, I would like to invest in real estate. I want to buy. Some people actually will have a property in mind that they want to purchase. But when I say, when I ask them, have you been pre-approved for a loan? Just like, they have no idea what I'm talking about. So I highly advise, to prepare yourself and get pre-approved for a loan. But actually, even before that, you have to make sure that you're in a position to be pre-approved. And what I mean by that is make sure that your credit score is at a level whereas you can be pre-approved. Make sure that your debt to income ratios are in line, and that you don't have like a crazy amount of debt and just this little bit of income, and so on and so forth. So preparation is absolutely important prior to actually going out shopping for properties.
And to build on that a little bit, I talk to a lot of first-time buyers that say, oh, well, I'm 6 months or a year out or even 2 years out. I'm not ready to talk to a lender yet. I'm still working on my credit, or I'm working on, my down payment funds and whatnot. And that is one of the worst things that you could do. Don't look at it as I'm ready to get pre-approved or not. Look at it as starting the conversation, starting to build your wealth team, as we'll talk about in a minute, getting those relationships together so that you can get to the outcome that you're looking for. Even if you're 6 months or a year or longer out, go get your credit run by a mortgage lender. I don't care if your credit is in the low 500s and you don't have a shot at getting a loan right now. It doesn't matter. You need to have that expert eye. You need to have that local mortgage expert look at your credit, give you those tips, tricks, and techniques that there are that you will not know about if you don't talk to that professional that's been doing this for a long period of time. And then the other piece of it is the funds that you need for closing. A lot of people think that they need a lot more money than they actually need towards closing on a property, especially first-time buyers. But like we said, there's a lot of very low money down opportunities that you have as a first-time buyer. There's also specific ways to structure deals where the seller can pay some of your closing costs, or there's different assistance that can be had and different ways to structure, like I said. But you need to know that as early as possible. You need to know that as soon as you possibly can, so that if you're $2,000 short of buying a home, you know what your goal needs to be, and you can move forward to that goal. And at the same point, you may be ready right now to buy a house and you didn't even know it. A lot of the loan programs that we use for first-time buyers have a minimum credit score with my underwriters of 580. And a lot of people think that you need this, good to excellent credit in the mid or high 600s or 700s just to get into that spot, which couldn't be further from the truth. The sooner you have that conversation and you get that strategy in play, the more opportunity you're going to have, because this market is constantly changing and constantly moving. So if you know what needs to be done, if you have that timeline and strategy in place with both your real estate professional and your mortgage advisor, then when that right opportunity comes up, you're going to be able to pounce on it immediately instead of having to start from square one. So that's really the preparation piece of it. Now, the second thing that Cameron had really alluded to is that a lot of buyers that come to him, especially wannabe investors, first-time investors, they'll have something called analysis paralysis, where they'll analyze a little bit too much and they won't actually put it into action. So can you elaborate a little on why this is such a bad thing and why it can really be a nightmare for a real estate professional like yourself when you're working with a buyer, somebody having this analysis paralysis?
So yeah, I think analysis paralysis, and just to really go into what analysis paralysis is you've done your homework, you've maybe you've gone to some classes, you've attended a home buyers course, you're actively researching real estate investing on online and so on and so forth, and you're developing your plan as to how you're going to go about implementing your strategy and so on and so forth, but you just never quite take action. And I think that people are in that situation for a bunch of different reasons. But all in all, whatever the reason is that you're stuck, planning on investing in real estate, but you never quite take action. The common theme is that in the end, you just end up disappointed, and you never quite take action, and you never get to a point to whereas you actually pull the trigger and make the investment.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree 100% with what you were saying before. Is in that it's important to just go ahead and contact your a real estate professional, a mortgage broker, or what have you, so that you actually know. Some people will actually find out you actually are in a position to where you can purchase now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that over.
Or
and
you're
over
very,
again.
very close.
Yeah, absolutely. You're very close. You're very far, or you can buy now. So it's good to have that knowledge. As to you are in a situation right now, whereas you can buy and you can get over that analysis paralysis.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I think is important that the viewers understand is that every single real estate deal that has ever happened in the history of the world is different.
Absolutely.
Okay? This is a very unique industry, and you'll probably only buy a handful of properties, in your lifetime, whereas us as professionals, we do this every day.
Yes.
Okay? And with every deal being different, you have to have your boots on the ground. You have to be in the trenches to understand what goes into a real estate transaction. So you could watch every video, listen to every podcast, talk to every person that you can that's a real estate pro, and it is not going to give you even 10% of the knowledge that you would have of doing one real estate deal on your own.
So true.
So even though your first investment may not be your best, it will give you the knowledge that you need to move forward and make those future very good investments, not to mention the relationships that you need with the different people in the process, as we'll be discussing here, and the different members of your team that you're really going to need to make multiple real estate transactions happen. So get out there, be motivated, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You're better off taking imperfect action and gaining that knowledge and credibility than sitting back and waiting for that perfect time, because by the time that perfect deal or perfect timeline comes into play, you may have already missed the bus, and you may have given up a huge portion of wealth by doing that. So that kind of leads me to our next pitfall to avoid, which is people that fall in love with a specific property or a specific street or school system, whatever it may be, specific deal, and they don't really look at the viability of that deal. They don't take the inspection seriously, if they even have one at all, and they just kind of glance over everything and don't drill down to make sure that this is going to be a financially viable opportunity. So can you talk about what you've seen, especially from first-time investors that kind of fall into that, where they don't really do that extra due diligence and they don't take it seriously even if they do?
Right. So yeah. So I mean, obviously, if I'm your agent, I'm going to guide you through that. But I have spoken to many investors that have horror stories of their own, to where they didn't do proper due diligence prior to purchasing a property, and that could be physical due diligence, and you just never had a home inspection done, or an inadequate inspection done, or what have you, and once you actually get yourself into the property, you realize this property's got a lot of issues that I didn't know about, and that's a very dangerous place to be, financially speaking. Also, from a financial standpoint, you may have not done your due diligence as far as financially speaking. Whether you have overestimated the amount that you can receive in rental income, or you overestimate the amount that you can whether be sell the property for, or what have you, if you're looking to flip a home or whatever. So it's very important to know your real estate math. as well. And if you, even if you don't know your real estate math, make sure that you're with a professional that knows real estate math and knows how to calculate a particular deal to make sure that it's a viable deal.
And that's the perfect segue to talking about the wealth team, which is really the final pitfall we see a lot of first-time investors and first-time buyers get into, is that they feel like, because I'm a new investor, because I'm not experienced with this, because I haven't done it before, I don't need a team. I'll find a local realtor out of the yellow pages or Alpha Google, or I'll find a mortgage lender based on a TV ad or my brother's uncle's cousin used or something like that. And that's where you stop. But I'm here to tell you right now, if you're going to take this real estate game seriously, even if you only plan on buying one property, you need to have a wealth team, okay? And we'll talk about the different members here in just a minute. But what this wealth team is it is a team of professionals. These professionals will be compensated as a result of you buying a property. So they're not doing this for free. But understand that the most prolific and successful real estate investors out there, really any investor for that matter, not only in real estate, has a wealth team. Absolutely. Okay, when you look at multi-millionaire and billionaire type of investors, they have an entire office of people that are managing this stuff for them. So as a first-time investor, first-time buyer, the instrumental people that we think you should have on your wealth team, that you really need to have, or else you're going to be winging it, is going to be at least one real estate agent or real estate professional. Now, the reason that you would want more than one is, ultimately, if you're going to get into commercial properties, or you're going to be in maybe a specific area that's very high-end, multi-million-dollar single-family homes, you may need to have more than one real estate agent. Right. If you're a first-time investor that's looking at multifamily, then Cameron would be a great first addition to your wealth team, because he specializes in that, and that's who you want. You want specialists on your team that know each part of this process. They know the ins and outs of the real estate game, so they can guide you. That's their job. These real estate professionals do not get paid unless you close the deal. So we are going to do everything possible to get you to that closing table as quickly and properly as possible with the least amount of hiccups. And I guarantee you there will be hiccups. I do not think there's ever been a real estate deal where there wasn't something. And a lot of the time, if you've got the right professionals on your team, there may be an issue, for example, with the appraisal. There may be an issue, for example, with an inspection. And if you've got the right professionals on your team, they'll be able to jump in and take care of that issue without you even being involved, because they're so on top of it. So in addition to having a realtor on your team, the next person you want to have is a financial or financing advisor, mortgage advisor. They're specifically going to handle the mortgage part of the process, from getting you pre-qualified, giving you the strategy, reviewing all your documentation, getting you pre-approved, painting the right picture for the underwriter, and advising you on what you need to do if you're not in position right now to get to the point where you can put that best foot forward when it comes to actually moving forward with the mortgage process. The next person is, you're going to need an insurance professional. It's required when you buy property that you have insurance on the property. Okay, and you would be surprised the different quotes you could get from different companies on insurance. So you definitely want to find that 1 to 2 insurance people that can help you. Again, maybe one that's focused on residential, one that's focused on commercial, and that sort of thing, maybe geographically and whatnot. They're going to be able to help you to get the best insurance policy possible, the lowest premium with the maximum amount of coverage, which is required for any sort of transaction that you're going to be in. If it involves a mortgage, you're going to be required to get that. Even if it doesn't involve the mortgage, I think everyone would advise that you have insurance on the property in almost every case. And the last really starting member of this startup wealth team would be a real estate attorney. There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of legalities that go into getting a house and closing on a property and getting a mortgage. So you want to have a real estate attorney that's got a lot of experience, that can help explain the paperwork to you, that can make sure that all the legal parts of the process are going correctly. And they'll also be a great intermediary, because typically if you're buying a home, the seller of the property is going to have an attorney as well. Absolutely. And they're going to be that go-between when it comes to negotiation and whatnot, also with your realtor, to finesse that deal and make sure that it closes on time and everybody is happy at the end of the day. Now, before I pass it to Cameron to talk about his perspective on the wealth team. I do want to also say that if you're an experienced real estate investor, if you're someone that's looking to build out a large property portfolio over a period of time, then you would also want to add to this wealth team a financial advisor that's going to handle balancing your portfolio, not only the real estate part, but also other investment vehicles like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And then last but not least, you're also going to want to make sure that you've got a tax professional or a CPA that's very familiar and astute with all the local and federal laws that govern your taxes, the deductibility of certain expenses, and whatnot. So really, it ends up being a 4 to 6 person team that you're going to want to build out on that wealth standpoint. So can you talk a little about what your thoughts are on building out a wealth team, even for first-time investors and buyers?
I think you hit it on the head pretty well. I think that's a really good start to your team to build out to get to the place that you want to get to. After that, there are certainly other people that you want to add to your team, such as a property manager, such as contractors. You'll definitely need contractors and so on and so forth. But I actually think you did a pretty good job with hitting it on the head as far as first time investors and so on.
And a lot of people, they don't think about this wealth team. Like I said earlier, they say that's only for experience. But if you do it early and you get that team together, you're going to be able to build out this real estate portfolio, whether it's one property or 100 properties, a lot easier when you're dealing with the same people, okay, and you know how each other communicate, and you have that relationship. Real estate, at the end of the day, is a relationship business. Absolutely. And having that relationship and dealing with those people multiple times is going to give you that. So hopefully, giving you these really 4 main bullet points on the pitfalls of first-time buyers and first-time investors, it gives you the confidence to know that you've got people here that care about your best interest. You've got people that can help you to not make these mistakes. So take it to heart, and we wish you absolute success with your real estate investment.